All right, Pastor Joseph Tillman, MDiv, soon to be Demon.
Yeah.
What is your testimony?
What is my testimony?
Yep.
So my testimony is that I grew up in South Georgia and
Boring.
At least I didn't start with, well, when I was born.
Yeah, whatever.
You ever heard those testimonies? You've been there for an hour.
Yeah.
You know, you got
In the beginning.
right. We didn't go to church a whole lot. We went some, but not often. And then when I was 17, and I've shared this before, but I got 17, I get invited out to this retreat and I come to know Christ. And then from 17 on, it has been a journey of living out this life of following Jesus. And, you know, when I mentioned earlier that when I heard the testimony of the individual that was speaking the night that I gave my life to Christ, he was sharing his testimony. And the part that connected with me the most was like, he was like, I've done these, you know, I've gone to the parties and I've done these things, and yet nothing really felt like fully like I never left like fulfilled, satisfied, you know, complete. And that was kind of the part that connected with me, like the emptiness kind of part. And I'm not sitting there saying I was like, you know, depressed or those kind of things, but like something just didn't feel complete. I don't know how else to phrase that. Mm-hmm. And so when I heard this individual give their testimony, when they got done, man, they did it like they did like an altar call, and I went up front of this little chapel in Tigert, Georgia, or Camp Tigert in Georgia and South Georgia. I go up there, and you know, an individual comes up to me and they're like, "Hey, are you a Christian?" And I go, "No, I don't even really know what that means or is, you know, fully involved in that." And they were like, I'm sorry. They said, "Are you saved?" And I said, I've never heard that phrase before in my life, and I hadn't. And they were like, would you like to be? And I was like, I guess. Anyway, they ended up leading me to Christ, and the guy that led me to Christ ended up staying up with me till like 2 a.m, even explaining to me what all fully happened. What I knew was that I was apart from God and I wanted to be close with God. Like that's as much of the language as I understood. And that's as much as I understood in my head when I got saved. And then he kind of helped fill in some of those things of who is Jesus? What does it look like to follow Christ? And then he began discipling me, and I've been really, to be honest with you, pretty much discipled ever since then, or at least part of discipleship groups ever since then. And so, yeah, for me, it's just been discovering who God is and who I am in Christ. And, you know, and I'm a pastor, and so I'm also, you know, I'm constantly asking, like, what is church and who is church and what does it look like for us to gather to worship this God that we say that we know? And, you know, yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
Cool.
Yeah. So I didn't say any of the salacious stuff that, you know, you would want to hear.
Nope.
Yeah.
And you're not an assassin either.
I'm not.
Boring.
Right.
Don't
Next
book
guy.
Joseph.
Right. But I'll say this too, like, and I think that's a big deal. Like you don't have to have this horrible past before you come to know Christ.
True.
And so, like, if you ask my wife about her testimony, it will come across as very quote unquote boring, right? Because she grew up in church, a quote unquote good girl, you know, behaved herself, and then comes to know Christ, as an early, the young teenager, and been, goes to a Christian college, and been following Jesus ever since, and married a pastor, and right. I mean, like, so like, you look back at her early, but there's nothing like about her, like before knowing Christ, that was like this horribly horrific thing, I mean, yes, she could say these are some things that went on and but like overall, it's not this like, oh, wow. To be honest with you, her testimony is more powerful after coming to know Christ and some of the things that's happened since then. And I think that happens in testimonies too.
Okay.
Where some of the things that you're sitting there, they're already saying when they came to know Christ and they're 3 minutes into the 30-minute talk, and you're sitting there going, oh my God,
yeah,
this might just be boring. But actually the things that's happened in her life since then, to me, are the things that really that people would want to hear.
And then I became an assassin for Christ.
No. And so I think that, so if someone's listening, they're like, they grew up in church their whole life, kind of know Christ early, never did anything crazy. Like, you don't have no one's got to us, or to society, whatever. It may not be this wow, whoa, crazy testimony, but like the reality is, anyone who comes to know Christ, like that's a huge deal. Like that's the thing. Like, come to know Jesus.
We're going to reject you from our new website, but you should still tell people your testimony.
It's okay. My testimony won't meet the criteria either. So
Me either.
I've rejected from my own website. So, so I think that I don't know. I don't think we need to get caught up in the testimonies have to be this crazy thing. Like, no, at some point, hopefully you came to know Christ and you're still following him. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think actually, I think one of the more interesting testimonies is people who grew up in church, came to know Christ, walked away from Christ, and have come back to Christ.
Well, we don't have time to get into mine. So.
That's an interesting testimony we'll just have Nate share his testimony next time.
Nah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.